Okay, so in we go, 10th edition, my first game. Let's see what we have here. So, I'm going to try and get a nice smattering of various bugs, artillery, infantry, some big stuff, just to get an idea of what they can do. Let's start off with the Swarmlord. The extra command point per turn will be nice, and with command points being at a premium in 10th, making my opponent's go-to strat cost an extra point will also be nifty. Sticking it to the enemy. The Synaptic Pulse is pretty weak. I'd rather have my Onslaught and Catalyst back, but whatever. Of course, some Tyrant Guard to keep the big fella safe. Okay, let's get some numbers in. 20 Hormagaunts with advance and charge. I want to dive them in and see how they perform. 3 attacks and a hyper adaptation could be decent. And 20 Termagaunts with Devourers. I am going with the 1 less strength for 1 more attack angle for these little guys. Again, going to see about working that hyper adaptation. Now, for some new stuff. Fresh from the Hive Fleet production line, 5 Barb Gaunts to try and tag advancing units and slow them up and maybe do some damage, but mostly to stall charges and objective acquisition. And to offset the new, how about some old? Some really old. The classic Hive Guard that haven't touched the battlefield for absolutely ages. My opponent often has vehicles, whether it's Votan, Iron Hands, Black Templars and such, so I'll try Shock Cannon this time. And the new and improved Haruspex. Let's see if it can get stuck in and start shoveling troops into that awesome Grizzly Moor that looks like it's from The Thing. I bought one when I first started Tyranids, but they were so lousy. Despite being an awesome model, I just went with the Exocrine build. There's a lesson. You never know what's going to shine down the line. Magnets are your friend. Neurothrope and 2 Zoanthropes to protect with their 6-up Invuln aura and to chuck out some Warp Blasts as necessary. And 3 warriors with Death Spitters and a Venom Cannon to do some range damage and steady the backfield with some Synapse, maybe to move and intercept as needed. No idea why the melee variant costs so much more, so that's why I'm going with Missile this time. 3 Biovores to throw Spore Mines into the back in Obscuring to snag engage on all fronts, and then switch to either Area Denial with some more of the same, or just start blasting the foe. A Broodlord and 10 Gene Stealers to drop in the front and sneak forward 9 inches, and then move and charge to get into the enemy and try and dish out those mortal wounds. This fellow has the enhancement of Synaptic Linchpin to make it Synapse, and hopefully keep the many armed nutjobs in the fray. A couple of Pyrovores to strip units of cover with their burning spray and make them easier targets for the big stuff. A couple of Exocrine for heavy artillery, and by tagging things, they grant a very nice reroll ones to hit for anything else targeting that unit. So these chunkies can turn 2 units into veritable projectile magnets. And then a Morlock to explode upward with a mortal wound bubble, and then loads of attacks to chew up infantry lines as a Haruspex also wanders in to noms away with alacrity. Right, I have my swarm. What faction am I facing?
God fucking damn it!
Well, okay, I'm going to break this battle report into 2 versions. Here's the quick summary as to how it went.
The war effort needs your effort, at work, at home, in your community.
And now, let's get into it. The infantry are useless, the anti-infantry is super useless, the Morlock still has that mortal wound blast, but the Haruspex? Eep. I just don't have much AP, but whatever. It's an opportunity to get familiar with the new data sheets of the Tyranids. So first up, picking some cards. We are playing Sweeping Engagement with us deploying in the corners. The mission rule is Delayed Reserves, which screws me with the Morlock, because until the 3rd battle round I need to roll a 3 up for it to come in. The primary mission is Priority Targets, 5 victory points to a max of 10 for each objective held, and at the end, 5 more to a max of 15. Secondaries. I pondered bring it down, but that's only 12 max, so assassination and engage on all fronts. I want to try this spore mine thing that we used to be able to do with our Ripper swarms. Drop them in the back and just leave them there ticking off the requirements every turn. The Knights go first with deployment and drop their really big fella in the very back, because apparently now towering, well, never had it, never used it, so I never bothered reading about it. Can see all and be seen, which means no cover for me unless it's behind the cargo containers, which, let's be honest, ain't going to be hiding jack. With that in mind, Exocrine by the back objective, Vindicare Assassin in the corner of the building, another Exocrine on the objective, Knight Valiant in the front line, Termagants ready to rush for the objective, Archeon on the front line as well, Biovores in the back on some cover, seeing as they can be seen by the Knights anyways, Hormagaunts in the right flank to dash forward and try and charge, Barbgaunts in the left corner of the ruin to get the Green Knight in range of their weapons. With nothing being infantry, all they can do is try and get some damage in, their move penalty thing being irrelevant. Pyrovores by the Hormagaunts, but the Knights aren't fussed about cover, so that's them pretty much useless as well. Tyrant Guard and Swarmlord placed close by, might as well try and get him stuck in quick. Tyranid Warriors at the other end to keep the Termagants in Synapse, Genestealer and Broodlord in the very front, and Hive Guard in the ruin in front of the Exocrine. Hopefully they can overwatch with their shock cannons and do some decent damage. Zoanthropes over with the Hormagaunts to bestow that invuln to them, and the Guard and the Pyrovores. And my hyper adaptation this round will obviously be hyper aggression, for 6's auto wound on monsters and vehicles. So we'll be testing the hell out of this one. The Knights win the roll off, so here we go. A command point each, putting us both on 1. The Knights advance, Big Red stays put. I'm going to overwatch on the yellow one with the Hive Guard, and they are going to spend a command point to rotate Ion Shields for a 4-up invuln save, which I can see them using a lot. So, Malign Presence from the Swarmlord now makes that cost 2 CP for the rest of the battle. The target is within range of an objective, so that's 4+ to hit. 6 shots against toughness 12, 6's auto wound. 4 wounding hits, AP -1, 4 ups to save, 2 go through, 6 damage, down to 19 wounds he goes. Missiles from Greenie. 2 shield breaker missiles onto the Exocrine, Harpoon on the Haruspecs, Swivel Cannon on the Genestealers, Multi-Melters on them as well, Cannon on the Termagants. Harpoon using the reroll to hit, 2s to hit, re-rolling 1s, yeesh, and a 1, but the reroll is a 3. Strength 24 against toughness 11. 4 ups become mortal, but doesn't get them, not that it matters, with AP -6. That's 12 wounds on my ugly bug. Conflagration Cannon into the Termagants. 10 AP1 damage 2 hits, 6's to save, 9 bugs are vaporized. Missiles into the Exocrine. 3's to hit, both hit, strength 12 versus toughness 10. 1 wound, AP -6, 2 damage. Melters into the Genestealers. 2 wounds, AP -4, so the invuln save it is. 2 of them perish. Cannon, 3 shots, 1 hit, save. The other, Flamers are out of range, but Stubbers and Cannon into the Hormagaunts. Strength 6, 4 mortal wounds, 4 saves at AP -2, so it's the invuln from the Zoanthropes. All save! Hell yeah! So only 4 Gaunts perish from the mortal wounds. Stubber gets 1 hit, 1 miss, nothing. The other stuff, 3 shots, strength 8, 1 save, AP -2, damage D6, 3 damage on the Exocrine. Archeon Flamer into the Zoanthropes, twin heavy bolters into the Gaunts. 6 shots, 1 reroll, 4 saves, AP -1, damage 2, 1 goes through. But wait, oops, the Knight forgot the ignore wound loss from my Overwatch, so we jump back in time and roll for that. And one of the Overwatch wounds is blocked, as it turns out. Heavy bolters take out a Hormagaunt. The Knight Castellan, Big Red, chucks missiles at the wounded Exocrine, plasma into the Tyrant Guard, and the big cannon into the other Exocrine. The plasma is not overcharged, 5 attacks, 3s to hit, 2 hits, strength 9, 2 wounding hits, AP -2, 1 goes through, 2 damage on a Tyrant Guard. Shield Breaker Missile, 1 shot hits, does not wound the Exocrine. Another missile on the Gaunts, 8 hits, no AP, 5 ups to save, 4 of them perish. Big Cannon on the untouched Exocrine, 3 shots, 2 hits, 2 wounding hits at AP -5, 8 plus D6 damage. Well, that takes out an Exocrine in one go, and it does not do deadly demise. Vindicare uses his Shield Breaker bullet on the Broodlord, but he misses, and there's no CP for a reroll. Looks like this one may be fresh from the temple, or maybe he was just posing to impress the knights and had an accidental discharge. Or maybe he just had a defective Exitus rifle. I get 2 command points thanks to the Swarmlord. Oops, I forgot that stupid scout thing. The Gene Stealers and the Broodlord jump 9 inches before the game begins. It affects nothing, just all this new stuff, a lot to keep track of. So they now do their normal move to get within a short charge range, so they can scratch up the knight's ankles a bit. Hormagaunts can advance and charge. They get a 6 and rush over towards the big yellow fellow. I really like this model stepping on a car. Very nice touch. Tyrant Guard advance and the Swarmlord stays with them. Zoanthropes advance to keep the guard in their invuln bubble. Haruspex advances just to try and keep the pressure up, entice a knight maybe to waste a shot getting rid of his last couple of wounds. And the Morlock, I roll a 5 so he can come in. 9 inches from Big Red and 9 inches from the knights at the front. Overwatch on the Gene Stealers, 8 hits, AP 1, damage 2, only 2 go through. Shield Breakers, nothing. Thundercoil, nothing. Reroll, nothing. Melters, 1 hit, 1 wound, kills 1. 2 cannon, 2 hits, no wounds. On to shooting, but first, oops, didn't see the Vindicare when I was placing my Morlock, so a quick reposition to get him 9 inches from the Assassin instead of Big Red, and 9 inches from the Knights. Speaking of which, on to the mortal wounds. I much prefer this explosion of trauma as it bursts from the ground. The previous one that had the ground surge and then it appears somewhere else was kind of feeble. I much prefer the Tremors style entrance into the fray. Greenie, a 1, no damage. 3 mortals on the other, they all go through. Vindicare takes 3 mortals, putting him on 1 wound, and Big Red gets D3 mortals and a 3. Nice going, Morlock!
Way to go, dude! Right! Yes! Yes!
Exocrine is going for Greenie to get that reroll 1s to hit for the Termagants, Barbgaunts, and Hive Guard. 9 shots, toughness 13 versus strength 8, so 5s to wound. 4 wounding hits, AP -2, 5 up to save, all fail to get through. Hive Guard anti-vehicle from the shock cannon, 5 hits, AP -1, 1 goes through, doing 3 damage. Barbgaunts, same target, no movement reduction, just a chance for damage. 5 wounding hits, 1 goes through for another point of damage. Warriors, the Venom Cannon, 2 shots, auto wound, it saves. Death Spitters, 3 hits, no AP, 1 goes through, but the ignore wound loss blocks that. The Swarmlord's Synaptic Pulse, which can't be used because the Tyrant Guard advanced, which makes Swarmy count as having advanced as well. So, no shooting from the Warlord, lame. Zoanthropes, yellow has less toughness, so I have a better chance to wound than on Greenie, so going for him. Warp Blast, 2 hits, AP -3, 1 goes through, doing 4 damage. Pyrovores, which I forgot to move, so they shuffle a bit, and 7 hits on the Banana Bot. 1 wounded hit, saved. Biovores drop 2 Spore Mines behind the rocks, and 1 behind the cargo crates, getting me every quarter for engage on all fronts. Oops, I also forgot Endless Swarm, should be in the command phase, but whatever. A CP for 6 more Hormagaunts restored to that unit, flipping the objective. Morlock, rolls a 10, clears the 9 inches and successfully charges. Now, charge the 1 wound Vindicare for a great visual? Nah, okay, into the night we go. Hormagaunts charge, Gene Stealers and the Broodlord charge. Morlock, 16 attacks, can't wait to see what this thing does to infantry, and an absolute horror of a roll. Check it. Anyway, 4 wounding hits, 1 goes through doing a point of damage. So, Gene Stealers, I make the attack, but as I moved onto the Broodlord, I noticed they get devastating wounds from it, with criticals becoming mortal, which is pretty big. So I basically redid the attack and just rolled way worse, but the ability did mean more damage output in the end. Okay, let's rewind time.
Let me run that back for you. Smutney was me, Smutney, Magnet, Smutney,
Right, re-rolling 1s to wound, because the target isn't on the objective to get a full re-roll. So 4 mortals, 5 wounding hits, AP -2, 4 go through for 1 damage each. The Broodlord gives the giant robot hypnotic gaze for -1 to hit. Not sure how that works. Does the pilot look into the monitor, see the Broodlord and freak out?
Perimeter breach. Perimeter breach.
The Broodlord gets 3 hits, all are saved. Hormagaunts, 3 attacks each, 13 wounding hits, AP -1, 2 go through. Fighting back, Greenie is going to stomp on the Gene Stealers and squishes one of them. The big banana bot swings his chain blade at the Hormagaunts, 12 wounding hits, AP -3, down they go, leaving just 2. There is the Von Ryan's Leaper, and now it seems we have the Leroy Jenkins Hormagaunt. Again, the prompt for battle shock test, which I passed, but it's in the command phase, so I don't think I actually needed to make it right then. The other assassin, the Eversaw Berserker dude, makes his appearance on the battlefield, all amped up and raging. His trainers have been putting bugs on his face to make him mental angry with all things invertebrate. Greenie walks out of combat, as does Big Yella, and the other one stays put. Vindicare Assassin at the Broodlord hits this time, but fails to wound. I think he's 6 inches from the ground, so he might have plunging fire for an extra AP. Something I should have factored into my own deployment. I should have put the Barb Gaunts and Hive Guard at a higher elevation just to get an extra point of AP. That might have been really handy. Anyway, Eversaw on the Leroy Jenkins Hormagaunts. 4 shots, fouls of them all. Man, the Officio Assassinorium must really have lowered the bar for graduation. Yellow Bot, Flame Cannon, and Heavy Bolters into the Zoanthropes. 7 AP whatever, going with the Invuln. 3 go through, leaving only the Neurothropes standing. 2 Heavy Bolters, twin-linked with the wound reroll, takes him out. The Grey Knight, Gatling Gun into the Tyrant Guard. Flamer into the Gene Stealers. 6s go mortal on the Gatling against infantry. Oops, oh wait, forgot my Overwatch this turn. Okay, jumping back. Hive Guard. Seems a little weird that it's the 1 unit on any other, not the charged one against the charged. I mean, this seemed more sensible. Frantic fire as you are being steamed by the enemy. Greenie is on the objective, so 4 ups to hit, 1 auto wound, 2 rolls to wound, 1 succeeds, 1 goes through. Gatling Cannon chews up the Tyrant Guard, but there's not enough left to transfer over to the Swarmlord at the Guard's toughness, which is a dumb roll. I think it will get FAQ'd at some point. Spear, 3 hits on the Hive Guard, 2 wounds, AP -2, damage D6, both save. Stubber, in rapid fire range, 6 shots, 1 wound, AP -1, saved. Flamer, 2 shots, auto hit, wounding on 3s with a reroll, AP -1, saved. If only I'd been rolling this well for damage, I'd not be in this pickle. 6 shots from the cannon on the Spore Mines, 2 hits, twin-linked, AP 0, damage 1, 1 save, 1 kill, 1 remains. Multi-melters shred the near-dead Haruspecs. Oh well, hopefully next time he'll have something edible to nom. Conflagration cannon, 13 shots, 12 of them wound, only 5 are killed. Missiles on the Exocrine, 1 wound, AP-6. Harpoon, 12 mortal wounds. Takes it out, no deadly demise though. Big Red throws a missile at the Morlock, hits, wounds, 2 go through. Volcano Lance on the Swarmlord, 1 shot, fails to wound. Plasma on the Gene Stealers, not overcharging, 4 shots, 3 wounds, AP-2, damage 2. 1 goes through, killing a Gene Stealer. Melters, 1 hit, 1 wound, saved. Charging, the Eversaw goes for the Pyrovores, and fails. The yellow Imperial Knight charges and spends a command point for Tank Shock. He makes the charge roll, he has more strength than Swarmlord's toughness, so it's mortals on a 5-up. Half the weapon strength in D6s, so 7 dice, 3 mortals on the Swarmlord. The other knight goes for the Morlock and spreads his base out so he can go for the Broodlord as well. Greenie into the Termagants, he makes it. Chain Fist into the Swarmlord, 3 hits, strength 14, AP-4, damage 6. And that's the Swarmlord out of here. Sweeping attack on the Gene Stealers, 8 AP-3, damage 2 hits, and they are gone. Greenie stomping on the Termagants, 2 wounds, 1 save. Fighting back, Termagants get 1 auto wound, saved. Broodlord, 3 wounding hits at AP-2, 4 damage gets through, the ignore wound loss. Morlock, 5 wounding hits, AP-2, and the tongue gets a hit with no AP. 4 go through, 3 get soaked up, the tongue hit does a wound. Oh, almost forgot, Death Frenzy for the Swarmlord, just to see what he is like in melee. 5 AP-2 hits, saves them all. That was less than impressive. Venom Cannon, 1 hit and it wounds. Both damage go through, the ignore wound loss. Death Spitters, 5 hits, AP-1, 1 goes through. Continuing to try and bring down just 1 knight before I call it. Barb Gaunts, 5 wounding hits, no AP, another wound takes him to 3. Biovores, 1 wounding hit, saved. Hiveguard, 5 wounding hits, AP-1, all saved. Last chance, Pyrovores, 4 wounding hits, all saved.
Oh, come on!
And we're gonna call it there. I just don't have the AP to do anything against these guys. Had I known I was going to be up against knights, I'd have dropped the Haruspecs and the Pyrovores, loaded up on Exocrine and more Hiveguard, protected them with a Venom Throat. But even then, it'll be a tough fight. The fact that they basically ignore obscuring means they just demolish whatever they fancy, and going first really seals the deal. Swarmlord is good, just not great in melee anymore, and so keeping him back to generate command points seems to be a big waste. Maybe he's better against infantry, but against tougher stuff, I think a Hive Tyrant to make a strat 0 command points and give him a cannon with which to contribute to the fight, keep him out of the fray so he can do his thing from the back line. Plus, being limited to what the Tyrant Guard do is a real detriment. The Broodlord and the Gene Stealers were good. I should have used Adrenal Surge to get mortals on a 5 or 6 to hit. I was daunted by the 2 CP, but then noticed it was for 2 units. Drat. Morlock should be fun against an infantry army, as would the Haruspecs, as would the Pyrovore to ignore cover. Yeah, I had too much ready to tackle a normal army, not 4 big honking robots and a couple of assassins. Zoanthropes were good, the Invuln Aura was handy to defend the Gaunts. Anywho, a very fun game. I learnt a lot. I miss my Psychic, it's just not the same it being lumped in with shooting. I guess it speeds things up, but being a Psychic faction feels like we've lost a lot. MVP? After all that time on the shelf, I've got to give it to the Hive Guard. Their Overwatch, especially on objectives, is grand. I may have to take 6 and go with Impalers next time. So nice to see them back on the board. The shot cannon wounds easily on vehicles, but the low AP means it's hard to actually do damage. So definitely gonna need to get plunging fire, seeing as shot cannons aren't indirect. Some Venom Throats, babysitting them might be the way to go, especially if they are with the Exocrine as well. I'm interested to see what impalers are like. Hive predators to target characters might be a thing. Overwatch and a normal round of shooting might get enough sixes to skip the bodyguards and blitz the leader with indirect, although I hear a nerf is on the way for that already. Anywho, it was a chuckle taking on gargantuan robots for the first time. Lots more 10th to explore.